The Dragon Ball manga is the source material of the famous anime series Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and has the key ingredients that make these shows as good as they are. Usually, when something doesn't make sense, and a stupid retcon is introduced in Dragon Ball Super, people are using this manga as means of defense, and cite it as a superior Dragon Ball experience. But is it? Being a combination of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z in one manga, the source material comes with its own can of worms. It started off as an adventure story with elements of Journey to the West, their goal being the gathering of the wish-granting Dragon Balls, which will backfire during the course of the series. The character dynamic of the cast was great, since everyone had their own interest in mind. Goku didn't want to give Bulma the 4-star Dragon Ball, but went alongside her to learn more about the outside world. Bulma is a selfish teenager, using her sexuality to get what she wants. Also using her power over others to her advantage. She uses Goku as her bodyguard and intends to steal the Dragon Ball from him at some point. Oolong is a selfish pig who just tries to survive. He pretty much is held captive by the other two. Yamcha is a bandit who acts as a friend in need, but uses Bulma and the others to collect the Dragon Balls for him. Sadly, there are no amazing fights Dragon Ball is usually known for. After this arc, it will keep repeating. Tournament arc, hunt for the Dragon Balls. That is until the Saiyans arrive and the story becomes bad guy arrives. Someone gains a power-up, usually a transformation. Bad guy tries to blow up the planet and fails. Bad guy gets defeated. It is when you realize Dragon Ball can be really repetitive by the time the Freezer Saga, the other pandas with ways too many chapters. Most of the fights weren't even worth seeing. At many times the author pulls out a power-up out of his ass because laziness. Eventually power creep happens. By the time of the Freezer Saga, the characters can get stronger when they even lose. They awaken their hidden potential or get a new transformation. It came down to the point that storytelling-wise it became unreasonable that a character can appear out of nowhere and can challenge the Sea Fighters, but Toriyama still didn't shy, pulling random overpowered characters out of his ass. But why is that such a big deal? The Goku had the following feats during his adventure. Trains under Master Roshi, the strongest known martial artist on Earth, who will retire. Trains under the god of martial arts, Korin, learning to make the most out of his moves. Destroyed an entire army by himself. Drank the holy water, which awakened his hidden potential. Defeats Demon King Piccolo, surpassing his old master. Gets trained by God of Earth Kami, beats up the reincarnation of King Piccolo, Piccolo Jr., who is even stronger than Kami, becoming the strongest being on Earth, fights an alien race he apparently belongs to, where the weakest, his brother, beats the crap out of him and Piccolo Jr., lands under the god of the world, later retconned to be the god of North Galaxy, King Kai, and surpasses him, fought the strongest Saiyan and survived. Fought the strongest being in the universe who can blow up a planet with a move of his finger by transforming into the legendary warrior, a Super Saiyan. This is not all. Goku gets stronger as he fights, and when he is healed from fatal injuries, gets multiple more transformation over the course of the series. He already started as an overpowered kid who can barely lose, but what does Toriyama answer with? Some robots from an army Goku defeated as a kid. Another never mentioned before Demon King, who is stronger than the patchwork of the strongest being in the universe. Bubblegum Monster, who always existed and happened to be on planet Earth. Eventually things got out of hand. The Dragon Balls turned into a self-parody with the offsprings of Goku and Vegeta in the Buu Saga, who defy established logic for cheap gags. If Dragon Ball were split into different series from the start, this kind of shift may have been excused, but many things established at the start don't carry over. Nobody remembers Master Roshi or the Kamehameha by the time of the Boo saga that watch the tournament and think they are cheating, except the announcer. Animal humans disappeared. Animals no longer talk. Not to mention of the transformation school. How about the characters? Most of the characters get neglected to the background after their act they were introduced. Examples of such are Tian Xinhang, Chaozu, Yamcha, Oolong, Puer, Lunch, etc. Roshi gets to do a few more things before he becomes obsolete by the power creep. Bulma is now only a plot device. In the earlier series, she felt more involved and moved the plot, but after the first arc, she only existed to fix the Dragon Raider and used a spaceship. Oh, and give birth to Trunks. Female characters in general are based in Dragon Ball. They are either violent, ugly, or prizes for the men to give birth. That includes Android 18, whose only memorable trait is that she is a strong female character for one fight before being demoted to a damsel in distress in the same arc. Goku is the main character pretty much. In the first arc, he was more of a bystander, but after that he becomes the most active. He learns the importance of training, learns about the world, and adapts. It is fun to see Goku react to women, or when he saw a TV the first time, he thought a man was trapped inside it, so he broke it. But eventually he understands how the world works and even knows how to do basic maths by the time he became a teenager. Goku is also very oblivious to trickery, which turns him to victims of pranks of Krillin. It never gets old seeing Goku react to something new, or trying a new technique in battle. As an adult, Goku is a pretty serious guy, finally a father of 2 children. He would be confronted with his sudden origin, having a brother opposite to him, and having to accept what he is. That would eventually give him the means to obtain the power no normal Saiyan could achieve, Super Saiyan. After his character arc was over, he would just show up to be a character that calls the shots, do most decisions, and how to handle the next threat. Put the things he learned from his master to good use, to train his sons and master Super Saiyan before obtaining the levels far above. While he does do stupid decisions, they are always with good intent, unlike Vegeta. It's in the series where he gets introduced. Vegeta would go through several character arcs. He is shown to be confident and in control in the Saiyan saga. The Frieza saga, he's the opposite, where he lurks around looking for an opportunity to get what he wants. While being confident, his control over the lower power level compared to Frieza and his elites clash here. In the Cell saga, after obtaining the Super Saiyan form, the event power went over his head. His interactions with his son gave him some interesting character development. While Vegeta was unbearable, that character arc indeed made him what people like about Vegeta. Lastly, in the Buu saga, he was a train wreck. He was one of the main highlights. He had an identity crisis and later sacrificed his life to stop Buu. He would eventually be brought back for one day to get a second chance, where he would find out that his sacrifice meant nothing. It was nice how he was willing to permanently fuse with Goku if it meant to defeat a great threat, which Super ruined. At the end, Vegeta would reflect and accept that Goku is indeed better than him, bringing his character full circle until Vegeta was ruined by Toriyama with a special chapter in Dragon Ball Super. And Krillin is probably the only useless character that tries to do something and move the plot somewhat. He has a good character starting as an insecure child who tricks Goku several times, so only he could receive training, and would become Goku's best friend and a punching bag for the bad guys to give Goku a power-up. Despite all that people like him for his guts, he is scared and avoids fighting even when the elderly and children get killed. but when the time comes, he shows courage even against the likes of Frieza, Cell, not Boo, which is sadly anime exclusive. There's a good reason why he is a fan favorite. Piccolo started off as the Demon King before Toriyama changed that. He was a goofy villain who did serious shit, is an enemy from Master Roshi's past, and defeating him would make Goku finally surpass his master for real. He would reincarnate as a different Piccolo who tries to take over the world again and fail, wasting most of his time training. Eventually, he and Goku needed to team up against the Saiyans, where he would bond with Gohan. It was a rush development in the manga, making his first death cheap. What happens with Piccolo is that he would appear to do something and never succeed. Finishing the final arc, he would be relevant, being outclassed by Saiyans. Gohan is pretty much a secondary main lead, at least intended to be. As Goku's son and being a half Saiyan, he was introduced as a character with very high potential and means to stop the Saiyans. He gets random rage boosts that allow him temporarily to get advantage over stronger opponents, but it is done in a way he doesn't feel like a Gary Stu, since the lack of experience and the power-ups don't manage to shift the tides of the battles in his favor. Eventually Goku would train him proper, and he would be the first Super Saiyan 2 defeating Cell. That moment finally being able to use his full power, and him growing up to become independent is what made many like Gohan. Sadly, by the time of the Buu saga, he would be nerfed and get another plot-induced power-up that end up doing nothing. Toriyama must have given up on writing Gohan because he's unable to write him like he can write Goku. A complete waste for those who were invested in him. Frieza is one of the most beloved anime villains, despite being one-dimensional evil bad guy. The way he represented himself is just amazing. Just in his introduction, without him doing anything, he made everyone shit their pants. He could kill anyone with the move of his finger, and even the last villain that survived a massive ass whooping didn't even consider challenging him. Frieza managed to survive the strongest moves and defeated the mightiest fighters with ease. Even the gods were scared of him. And as a killer of the Saiyans, they really wanted Goku to be the one defeating him. Frieza was also a good villain to push Goku far above his morals and force him to obtain the Super Saiyan form at the end. Sadly, he would eventually be ruined in the next arc and other media, but in the Frieza saga, he is the villain many love to hate. Besides Cell, the androids were awful antagonists, overpowered for no reason, and they pretty much forgettable. 16 only existed as a plot device for Gohan to get serious. Cell started off as a mysterious antagonist, would just infodump everything. He was interesting as he was a patchwork of other fighters, using his knowledge of others to his advantage in the moves. At least that's what he should have been. Eventually he absorbs 17 and becomes the ugliest being ever, and all we remember from that form is him getting his ass kicked by Vegeta, to the point Vegeta suggests him to absorb 18. After absorbing 18, Cell lost everything that made him special. There was no motivation for him left, since he reached his goal and all he could do is test his power. Sadly, we need a villain that is worth killing, so Cell threatened to destroy Earth if nobody fights him. He would eventually act like Vegeta and Frieza, about to destroy the planet when packed into a corner. All the great powers are also wasted on him, since he uses the Kamehameha the most often, the most generic and probably the weakest move in Dragon Ball. Mr. Satan started off as a boring comic relief character with a one-note joke. In the Buu saga, his character arc with Buu is what made him actually funny, and he would come in clutch, defeating Buu at the end. Fat Boo, aka Majin Buu or Mr. Boo, started off as a mindless monster with a child's innocence. He liked killing and eating people. After meeting Mr. Satan, he would start respecting others' lives and other good things. But since we need a bad guy to defeat, his body would spread an evil side who absorbs him and becomes a new villain, Super Boo, who just is referred as a Majin Buu, is basically a parody of Cell. Like Cell and Fat Boo, he can regenerate. He's basically a Boo with all the abilities of Boo, can absorb others to gain their skills, knowledge, etc. He can rather feels like a filler opponent since all his fights lead to nowhere. Eventually, after the Fat one gets removed, he turns into a small Majin Buu, who is just a random psychopath and becomes stronger because absorbing Kaioshins made him weaker. Goten, Kid Trunks, and Gotenks are basically filler characters, as they only parody the accomplishment of their death, and otherwise don't add anything to the plot. You can remove them and miss nothing of importance. Art, I think Toriyama uses the panels really to his advantage, and knows how to make a good fight, but eventually he stopped paying attention to detail. Night times became rare. He forgot about the Saiyan tail. Super Saiyan exists, so Saiyan's Goku's hair doesn't need to be inked. Moon gets destroyed, so you don't know the passage of time. Also, iconic moments don't feel as impactful as in the anime. Super Saiyan transformation only lasted for 3 panels and didn't leave much of an impact. And sadly, that affects the enjoyment negatively too. Fights became repetitive. Your opponent is so strong that strategy and technique no longer matters unless you are about even to your opponent. Master Roshi would have no chance to beat Pui Pui, no matter how much he trains or how much experience he has. Many characters get randomly illogical power-ups, and training is usually skipped, and new stuff get introduced like I mentioned. Goku didn't even earn drinking the holy water in the manga during the King Piccolo saga like in the anime. It was just given to him directly by Korin. Training also felt cheap. The long snake way has been shown in just one panel, with Goku running on it, so it didn't feel like it was hard to reach King Kai like it was in the anime. And fights became essentially a tennis match of power, where other fighters would transform to shift the battle to their favor. And though there are hardly any even fights by the time the Saiyan saga begins, relationship with Gohan and Piccolo were rushed. Piccolo's fight against Frieza felt more pointless than in the anime because it lasted only for one chapter and Frieza didn't even realize he was fighting Nail again. The secondary cast is completely useless and Buu Saga dragged out way too long. The ending of Dragon Ball doesn't feel like it is giving closure to Goku's adventure, but just a closure to the Buu Saga. Thus, it is a failure even as an open ending. Overall, Dragon Ball didn't age too well. And while filler in the anime is a pain, it is giving us a much better product than the manga, since it fleshed out many characters instead just putting them on a panel to remind us, I didn't forget they exist. It is a fine manga, but not something to brag